Today on Legends of Rod and Reel, the story of an eternal optimist. Joe Booker's thrown more casts than just about anybody on the planet, which makes him America's authority on big, toothy critters called muskies. Joe Booker's story today on Legends of Rod and Reel.
All who seek fish are not created equal. Some anglers who ply the waters possess a passion unbridled, with catching skills unmatched. With all fish, they see eye to eye. They are the Legends of Rod and Reel.
On a cool fall afternoon,
there are these old river strains of fish here that there's some big ones in there. You guys all set?
Joe Booker tips his hat and gets to work. He zips across a remote Wisconsin lake headed towards fertile water.
Just built this baby, and now I'm going to catch a fish on it. All right, let's see what happens here, huh?
Joe must be the kind of guy who collapses at the end of the day. After all,
there we go.
Most days he fishes, he does this.
Ducks are quacking in the background.
Over and over and over.
Good stuff.
Joe Booker changed the Midwestern fishing scene so much, he ended up in fishing's Hall of Fame. For what? Well, a subtle hint sits in front of the hall.
It's not that I'm crazy about muskies and I don't like other fish, because that is not true. I love the walleye fish. Absolutely am crazy about bass fishing. But muskies is just, it's at a level that it's a challenge. But you go out muskie fishing not expecting to catch 15 fish. You go out there hunting for a big fish.
Oh, that's a big one.
You have no idea when you make that cast what could follow your lure in, how big, I mean, it could be a 5-foot fish follow your lure in at any moment. And that's the thing that really got me excited about muskie fishing. When I first saw my first big one follow a little boat, and my knees were shaking, and I was like, I almost dropped the rod. I was like, because I'd never seen anything like that. I was like, oh my gosh, we're talking at a whole different level here.
Over the years, Joe Booker's caught literally thousands of muskies, but his success didn't come without a lot of work. Joe Booker fished and guided as a young man and became editor of the first all-muskie fishing magazine. Later, he discovered what would prove to be one of the biggest innovations in muskie fishing. His notoriety led to a career in building baits and eventually the television biz. Even so, Joe still likes quiet evenings alone on his quiet Wisconsin lakes.
We're in a full moon period, and out with a friend this morning, got a fish right on moon set, and moonrise will be right after dark here.
Now, when you listen to Joe talk fishing, it sounds a little technical. That might be the exact thing that made him so successful. He understands water, and he darn near seems to understand how fish think.
This is the perfect time to be on big fish water here. Perfect time. You know?
You see, muskies used to be called the fish of 10,000 casts. Joe helped improve those odds drastically. Still, fishing never comes with guarantees.
We only got about an hour to go at the most. So it's going to happen. Should happen pretty quick here.
Long after the sun sets, Booker still casts. And that's what legends are all about. For good reason, too.
I lost him. Got him. Funny, I was just saying to myself how this is the first good weeds I've hit with the crankbait. Find good weeds on these weed edges, and bingo, you got a fish. Now here's a classic last light muskie here. Cold front after a nasty, nasty day. And I'll tell you, I've written about this for 35 years, how when you get these cold fronts, this is an October cold front after just an awful day. The air temperature was in the high 30s, low 40s, and just a downpour. We had about 1.5 to 2 inches of rain. Now we have a cold front, kind of a clear out day. And you catch one muskie, you get one strike early in the day and one strike at the end of the day. And this came right after dark. There he is, beautiful fish too. The old trusty depth raider, great little night fishing bait there, huh? Good as it gets. A nice looking fish, huh? Real quick. Beautifully spotted fish. Not a beauty? Made my day, but you know, I've just caught tons of fish like this on these cold front conditions. One strike at the very end of the day. See you later. Muskie gator. Okay.
Joe Booker's morning routine looks, well, just that, routine. Day in, day out.
My favorite town in the North Woods, that's for sure.
Joe heads to the woods in search of new water.
I'm headed to a little lake down the road here. I fish a group of lakes here in the Nicolay Forest. Not only for smallies, but also for muskies here. We're gonna fish one of them here this morning. You can see, by the way, what we're driving through, this is pretty good. This is pretty cool. As good as it gets. Driving these lakes every day is pretty awesome.
Days like this in the woods started literally a lifetime ago.
The whole reason I think I got started in fishing was because of where I lived. You know, I was just fortunate enough to grow up in a small town in southern Wisconsin on a lake. That is the guy that taught me how to fish. Right there, my grandfather, you know, Joe Booker Sr.
Booker Sr. came to the U.S. a German immigrant and fought in World War II.
After the war, he was a brewmeister. And in fact, there's rumors he actually worked for Al Capone. And he was a bootlegger for Al Capone, and that's where he got his money. He actually bought some land in southern Wisconsin, built a resort, you know, built the cabins and the park and everything, and that's actually how it all started.
Joe spent his childhood years at that resort.
And what does a little kid do, you know, when he's hanging around a shoreline on the lake? He's growing up every day, wakes up, walks outside, there's water in front of him. So what do? You either throw rocks in the water, go swimming, or you go fishing. And I did all three, you know, and, and then I found out I liked, you know, catching fish more than throwing rocks in the water.
You see, Joe learned the nuances of fishing for walleyes, bass, and pike. As a young man, Joe discovered he had a knack for writing.
And I started writing articles for fishing magazines. And Fishing Facts magazine would being, you know, the premier magazine back there in the 70s. When I first started getting my articles published in Fishing Facts, it kind of launched things. When I first got well known, it was in my first articles in fishing magazines were not about muskies, they were about bass fishing, and then it graduated to walleye fishing. And then when I moved to northern Wisconsin in the mid-1970s, after I was done with school, I wanted to try guide business. Just try it for a summer, see how it worked. Well, I never left.
He guided for years, getting his clients on a lot of big fish. Joe could catch fish, well, most of them. Muskies were always his challenge.
No matter how good I got at it, I got my butt kicked all the time. You know, I'd come in with no fish, or I'd see one. So what I did with the muskie thing was say, okay, can the crankbait fishing that I've been successful with at bass, you know, cranking deep diving lures on long weed lines and stuff, can that work for muskies? I tried it, and it worked.
Suddenly, Joe found himself immersed in muskie fishing.
Nobody had a place to voice their opinions, write about their techniques and stuff. Nobody had a place to do this. And I thought, you know, we need a muskie magazine. It was about the time, too, when niche magazines started to take hold.
Joe helped start Muskie Hunter magazine, a first of its kind.
And Joe thought, you know, that there's a lot of muskie fishermen, a lot of muskie fishermen who want to learn, want knowledge, and he thought that the time was right for Muskie Hunter magazine. And here we are today, 20 plus years later. This is December, January.
Steve Heiding now edits the magazine, and Joe still writes as he did decades ago.
I remember Joe wrote the first article, you know, about using the moon for muskie fishing. I remember, you know, a mutual friend of ours said, you know, you don't want to share that. Well, Joe shared it, and it's resulted in, you know, probably thousands of big fish for people, you know, everywhere.
The writing career launched the guiding career. The guiding career launched the lure manufacturing career because I started tinkering with lures. Hey, there's another prototype that's been sitting in the same off the top raider body. It hasn't been made yet.
You see, for years, Joe tinkered with musky baits, building dozens of his own designs.
Okay, let me see where that's at.
Many still hide in boxes out in the garage. Think of it as Joe's fishy menagerie.
I always come up with lures to fill a void or a need of something. You know, I design lures most of the time because for example, this spoon right here is like, I know there's muskies in that grass, and I've got nothing else that can go in there and get them.
Joe's hobby eventually led to Joe Booker Outdoors. In local muskie shops, signs of Joe's success, especially this bait, the Top Raider.
We've run through all kinds of stages with these lures. Yeah, in fact, you look on the back of these, you can see they're marked. G3 means generation 3, so this was the third group of lures we built. So I was trying to build lures that not only caught fish, but that once you get a lure that works, you want it to last. When somebody walks into a sport shop and actually plunks down his money to buy your lure because it looks better, or for some reason he decided on that lure over somebody else's, then he actually goes out and catches a big fish on it and sends you a picture. As good as it gets.
Up next, a muskie angler sings the blues. Also, Joe gets a buddy on a big fish.